Yes. Sorry, just one moment. Starting. No. I'm saying we're going to start in 2 minutes. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I think our program will start now. My name is Unisa Swanepoel, and I have the honor of serving as the program director this afternoon. I'm thrilled to welcome you. Your presence here not only enriches our afternoon, but also underscores the significance of the dialogue we're about to embark on. This morning marked the commencement of the 2024 Research and Innovation Week. The theme for this year couldn't be more appropriate. It says, bridging the gap between science and society, fostering research and innovation for societal impact. This theme resonates well with the very important work we are doing here today. Earlier today, colleagues eloquently emphasized the imperative for the practical application of Unisa's catalytic niche areas, which were conceptualized by our VC and principal, Prof. Buleng Lenkabula. I'm not sure what will be discussed in detail here today by the speakers. They will come and make their opinion known later. But I have a sense that this discussion isn't merely theoretical. It's about creating actionable insights that drive societal progress, societal impact for sure. And I'm saying this, and if the audience can allow me to share a personal experience just yesterday, and I thought how appropriate this session is today. So I was doing a banking transaction yesterday, and there was about only 2 rand in my account, a positive balance, by the way. And I'm saying this because my boss is sitting here, and he must hear that he should actually increase my salary. So while I was busy with this 2 rand transaction, another transaction went through while I was actually busy on my banking app. And I was perplexed at it because it sent me in a complete and a very heavy negative. And immediately I saw a phone call, and I obviously kicked this phone call to the curb because I was busy with a very important banking transaction. My money went away and I need to get it back. And while I did not answer the call, I got a message from the bank saying that we suspect that there's a fraudulent transaction taking place on your account. And I thought, wow, fourth industrial revolution stuff. I mean, I'm busy with the transaction, and the next minute the bank is calling me to ask me what is going on in my account. And I obviously called back immediately, and we had the conversation that I did not make that transaction. I planned to do the R2 transaction, not the huge negative amount that I went into. And that was really awesome stuff, because not only did it happen, and it was an international transaction, but it impacted society. And I know, colleagues, I'm now referring to myself as society here, but if you really think about it, I live in a very small area in Centurion. So from an international transaction to impacting me here in South Africa, right there in Centurion. Now, I thought that was awesome. Not the fact that I got robbed, obviously, but the fact that it brings us back to the session here that's going to take place this afternoon. Our theme, the Unisa Press theme, is Proudly South African Indigenous Girl Meets 4IR. Did you guys get that? It was the 4IR meeting the Indigenous girl nogal, me. On a more serious note, though, our theme is Proudly South African Indigenous Knowledge Meets 4IR. My story is conveniently portraying the convergence of being proudly South African in living in a fourth industrial revolution era. As Unisa Press unveils 2 books that exemplifies the essence of the discussion this afternoon. We're launching the book, The South African Confronts the Fourth Industrial Revolution Era. It will speak about the challenges, which is something that I just spoke about earlier, pathways and possibilities, and the book was authored by Patel, Mtembu, and Tlaswayo. We're also launching, now this is the societal impact, the gap that we're breaching, colleagues. Invisible or ignored, the status of indigenous African instruments in the Venda Society by Dr. Nechi Bambe. So ladies and gentlemen, fellow colleagues, our program promises captivating discussions. These speakers are here with impressive resumes, academic and professional reputations. They are here physically, and we will try to connect with some of our colleagues virtually as well later on. We'll commence with Unisa Press Director, Dr. Ntwesani, will give us a brief introduction to the topic, a little bit in more detail, and then we will move on to an enlightening keynote address by Dr. Yende, followed by a stimulating panel discussion facilitated by Mr. Patel, who's one of the authors of the books that we're launching today. Following this, we'll immerse ourselves into the rich tapestry of African heritage with a profound exploration of indigenous musical transitions with Dr. Nechibambe. We will ensue a question and answer session, and hopefully that will provide a platform for spirited exchange, leaving us intellectually invigorated after Prof. Ngubani, who we hope will connect with us later online. We'll then respond to the text of the 2 books. And if you're thirsty and hungry after that, after the discussion, we will have refreshments after the closing by Dr. Madikiza. So before we start our agenda, I would request you to fully immerse yourselves in the proceedings today, engage with our speakers, share your insights on social media using our hashtags 4IR in South Africa. I will share that again later on. So without further delay, let us extend a hearty welcome to Dr. Ntwesani, our Unisa Press Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Senshia. Good afternoon. While I'm still excited about 4IR and technology developments, I'm just reminded by when Bill Gates then said to IBM, there should be a personal computer in every home. And the mega company believed absolutely, I can imagine, that he was crazy. And this is how big the computers have become. So that must be 4IR. There is a saying that if you take an incident where a predator has been killed or has been hunted and killed by a hunter, and the hunter writes the story, it always comes as the story of courage, of bravado from the point of the hunter. Who writes the story? Same incident. If that story is to be told by a not so cold yet predator, same incident, same place, will read very differently. My point is, one of the things that we do with my colleagues is to provide an environment where the stories are told by the owners of the story, not by the observers of the events. Not only the owners of the story, but also the participants from lived experiences. And I'm giving this footnote entrance because the text that we're dealing with today, while look not related in any way, shape, or form, but at the very core, they're actually very related. We'll be sitting and listening to the colleagues about these two texts that are going to share with us the experiences, lived experiences, and the story from their point of view. That was just my entrance, but allow me to welcome everybody on the heels of what our Vice-Chancellor had said and our VP had said in opening this exciting week on the calendar of Unisa, Research and Innovation Week, where from all the quarters of the world, we can pause and reflect not only on research itself, but start asking ourselves about the research that we're engaging in, how innovative we are, and bringing it to this year's context. How do we bridge the gap between research and society? So you are all welcome here at home. Please feel free to immerse and engage. And I'm looking forward to thank Dr. Fellenyende, who graciously agreed to join us this afternoon to give us insights as our keynote address. I have no doubt in my mind that not only she will excite our brain cells, but we will leave here with renewed energy and insights from her conversations. And thank you very much, Dr. Hende, for agreeing to join us. Mr. Patel and Dr. Nechibambe, you colleagues know the journey from the submission of the text and the ups and downs from peer review to all other fancy things. But you stayed the course. And as Unisa Press, we're really humbled to welcome you here at home so that you can engage with the colleagues on the text and your engagement, indulgence on this that which you have put down. So you are welcome here. This is your home. That goes again to Dr. Philani Mthembu, Dr. Martin Kagwa. I got it right. Mr. Tiani Ngonyama and Mr. Bongani Maimel, who are going to be engaging in conversation with Mr. Patel on this text of Fourth Industrial Revolution. And we're looking forward as we welcome here to engage, be interacting with you on this text that is not only going to educate us, but to liberate us and get our minds to be tuned to the future outlook. In fact, probably as we speak now, I'm sure you're already working on the Fifth Industrial Revolution text. So I welcome you too. I'm sure Prof. Ngubani cannot wait to join us in dissecting and responding to these two books that will be launching this afternoon. So colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, there is also a saying that goes, I don't know if that's still applicable, and this not in any form or shape, derogatory or otherwise. They used to say, if you want to hide something for a black person, put it in a book, and they will not get it. I would like to believe that that narrative has otherwise since changed, because everybody, our colleagues, black or white or pink or yellow, understand the necessity not only to put text on paper, but to create new knowledge, which is what we're sitting here and gathered here together. And as we create knowledge, and allow me maybe at this point, as we understand why we're here, as we create knowledge, we need to understand knowledge creation cannot and should not only be viewed through the lens of the Western psychology. Putting it differently, if you are to leave the legacy for the next generations, at the very least in our communities and societies, we need to engage in creating text and knowledge systems and knowledges, not only that talks about them, but those ones that resonate with the communities that we live in. And here particularly, I probably want to zoom in on the work of Dr. Nechibambe, that in bridging the gap between research and society, some of the things that we forget, especially in the African context, its knowledge has been created and fueled where there's melody and music. And whenever there's melody and music, in our context, it didn't only start by piano. There have been instruments as powerful as the piano, the grand piano, that our forefathers and our foremothers embraced, developed, and kept us informed. So, as I said, the two texts might look that they are far apart, but they are otherwise in the same lineage of understanding. While we deepen our thinking to the work of the instruments of musical nature from the vendor, we're also asking ourselves, how is that indigenous knowledge influencing the future through the Fourth Industrial Revolution? So I welcome you here, and I'm very excited that you heeded the call to join us in making sure that not only universities, but university presses, like Unisa Press, when you publish and disseminate the text, is not for the elite few, but we disseminate and publish the text that is contextual, that can be used both by the elite, by the intellectual, and the pragmatic. And that's what we strive for. And the conversations that we'll be having this afternoon is to bring unison to this approach. Without wasting any time, I thank you very much. You are at home, you are welcome, and thank you, Sensia.
Thank you, Dr. Ntwesani. Okay. Thank you very much for welcoming so graciously all of us here today and inspiring us to create new knowledge. I wonder what the fifth industrial revolution will look like. But while we are here, let's focus on the more important stuff. Our next speaker, our keynote speaker today. Wow, when I looked at her biography, I thought, when I grow up, I want to be just like this lady. Our speaker here today is Dr. Fileng Yende. She is the CEO of, very long title, Fiber Processing and Manufacturing Sector, Education and Training Authority. Now, there is an abbreviation. You can see it on the program. Now, Dr. Yende is an award-winning CEO of FBM CETA. She demonstrated that building a consistent, strong organization culture is one of the most important contributors a leader can make. Since taking over as CEO in 2013, she has clearly articulated her sense of purpose and vision in the implementation of National Skills Development Plan in the 13 industrial subsectors. Colleagues, it does quite long. It's clothing, textile, footwear, leather, pulp and paper, wood and wood products, furniture, forestry, printing, packaging, print media, publishing, and general goods. That is why I want to be like her one day when I grow up. Okay, so Dr. Yende's qualifications are, she's a doctor in philosophy, in management and technology, and in innovation. Her title of her dissertation, and that is why she's here today, Enhancing Public Sector Leadership in the Age of Fourth Industrial Revolution. Her formal qualification include a master's degree in Public and Development Management, an executive program, African Leadership Conference hosted by Harvard Business School, and several governance training has been undertaken by her. She is a board member or board participation in the chairperson of Etlazeni TVET Council and chairperson of the Association of CETA, CEO for ASEO. Also serves as a board member of the South African Furniture Initiatives and Printing Industries Federation of South Africa. Dr. Yende is extremely results-driven. We're going to listen to what she has to say today about Fourth Industrial Revolution, and thus we welcome her here today. Let's give her a hand of applause.
Thank you very much, Ms. Swanepoel. I'm actually quite deliberate in holding both paper and my iPad. I think one of my interests, and actually as part of the work that I do, is the support of all the printers in the country. And because of that, I always carry my paper, because I want them to know that I'm also with them. While we are transitioning, it's important for them to also know that they still have my support. While I've written passionately, with great interest, a thesis that talked to technology and the importance of embracing Fourth Industrial Revolution, I still support them. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Let me take this opportunity to greet the esteemed Vice Chancellor of Unisa, Professor Buleng Lingta Bula, and the Vice President of Research, Postgraduate Studies, Innovation, and Commercialization, Professor Tenjiwe Meiwa. Esteemed professors that are here and those that have joined us online, our doctors, our lecturers, guests at large, and to our students. A very good afternoon to you all. As introduced by Ms. Swanepoel, my name is Fele Nyende. I'm the CEO of Fiber Processing and Manufacturing SETA. At the outset, I have to thank the Vice Chancellor and the Vice President for the invitation and the opportunity to address you on this critically important research theme, bridging the gap between society, science and society, fostering research and innovation for social impact. I think this theme for me is so important. I remember when one was actually growing up, we always looked at research as a process where interviews were conducted, documents were prepared, and you know, when you go to the library, you've got a section of all these books that's stored in there. Only when you go to the library will you then be able to access that document. And I think we need to change that narrative, and I think that's why today we're here, and we're actually having this discussion as well, to say how do we make research accessible to even people that are sitting in Venda. Perhaps it's a paradox, because we're saying to even people sitting in Venda, KZN, Free State, etc., and yet we're talking about Fourth Industrial Revolution. I think the challenge is huge, the challenge is massive. There are huge opportunities that I have argued in my paper that are actually presented by the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I will get to that. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to address you today as the keynote speaker at this Unisa press book launch. It is important to mention that the timing of this event is very critical, as this event collaborates with this year's Research and Innovations Week. The Unisa press book launch plays an important role this afternoon in the launching of 2 books that have already been mentioned, and congratulations indeed to the authors. These 2 books dissect the discourse of the invaluable contribution of research and innovation in bridging the gap between science and society. The first book, which I am highly appreciative that I was able to get the opportunity to go through the book, however brief, but I actually got a link, and I was able to use that to access the book and look at what the book entails. The book is the South Africa Conference, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Challenges, Pathways and Possibilities, by the 3 authors, Ntate Patel, Ntate Mthembu, and Ntate Hlatshwayo. The second book, of course, is Invisible or Ignored: The Status of Indigenous African Instrument in the Venda Society, by Ntate Neti Vembe. I hope I've done it justice to that. I congratulate all the authors of the 2 books on making an immense contribution to society and science. We know that the launch of these books demonstrates an integration of science and research, and they're very 2 impactful interventions. And I think reading them together, it actually makes sense if you think about it. If you think about the arguments that we're making, particularly in the skills development fraternity, education fraternity as a whole, linking that to the world of work and expectations there, we need to make sure that when we come with new innovation, we should be able to say, how do we reach the country at large? those discussions are important. I must confess that due to my passion for 4IR, which informed and underpinned my research, I will also be making some references to that. And I actually said when I was putting this together, I'll be making some references because I was asking myself, am I coming here because of my research? Am I coming here because I'm the CETA CEO? Am I coming here because I'm the chair of TVET College? Am I coming here because I'm the deputy president, I don't know, of the TVET governance structure? So I was not so sure. So I said, I'm going to be safe and say some, so that I don't then bombard you with my research that I so much love. So I will be making reference from time to time on the work that I've actually done. So our primary objective as researchers should be, we should be able to make scientific research more accessible, as I've already indicated, beneficial and relevant to our communities, while also promoting collaboration between science and society. When I was growing up many years ago, a scientist was a man or a woman with a white jacket. And we used to be so scared because we thought that is a scientist. We didn't understand that when you start and undertake a process of research, you're getting into that science field as well. So in our view, a scientist was that person that goes to the lab wearing a jacket with some microscope and looking at some particles and all of that. But we know today that as we study and we produce reports, research reports, that is the precursor is actually science. This is clearly articulated in the collaboration, the importance of being accessible and relevance, the work that we do is articulated in the foreword of the publication by Dr. Pando. Like I've said, I've read the book, and I have taken some notes from there. The Minister of International Relations of Cooperation of South Africa, who expressed at the time, she was the Minister of Higher Education and Training, who expressed that this timely and relevant publication is welcome. It's a welcome contribution as South Africa navigates a complex pathway into 4th IR. In fact, at the time, the minister was also, I think, completing her PhD. She did inspire most of us to also complete our PhD, because I think, to undertake this academic field, it takes a lot of work, the to and fro. If you don't have that energy, you will actually give up. And I think the authors will actually attest to that. The minister went on to state that the Unisa Press and the International Labour Organization of Southern Africa are to be commended for making this publication a reality, and encouraged all stakeholders to use this publication as a resource in engaging the 4th Industrial Revolution debates in the years ahead, at the time, now, and in future. Her very apt comments of this publication resonates with my extensive doctoral study, enhancing public sector leadership in the age of 4th Industrial Revolution. I was looking at that in the context of CETAs towards a conceptual framework, and this I concluded in 2021, where I prefer arguments and counter-arguments that abound in empirical research regarding the 4th Industrial Revolution technologies. My study, which was a qualitative exploratory case study of the South African education and training authorities, was undertaken as a critical, reflective, work-based challenge to advocate for a shift in performance through 4IR. Service delivery throughout the country. Even today, even yesterday, Saturday, the stadium was full in Soweto. Service delivery, things are not happening. How do we come on board as academics? What difference can we make as academics, as writers, to be able to assist and support government in their policy development, strategy development, but coming with practical solutions to make sure that service delivery is it's felt on the ground. My study surmises that the public sector of various countries have improved the performance. So, of course, when you sit and you start looking at a research, you will read a lot of documents, a lot of reports, credible reports. And you'll be able to say, where did this work and where didn't it actually work? First world countries, we know that 4IR, when it hit there, they were able to enroll it into their systems, big business systems, and they were able to actually make it work. Even governments in first world countries, they embraced 4IR, and they were able to successfully improve on their mandate as government. Currently, as I pointed out in my PhD thesis, uptake in the public sector, and I think if I have to quickly think about 2019, 17, 20, when the president established the commission, we were not yet there. 4IR was a strange concept. Even now, we're still at that snail pace. I still think that we are making inroads, but I think there's a lot that we can still do and achieve. Managing change in the public sector services will require the leadership in the public sector. I'm arguing in my document, in my research, to be responsive, find ways of working and encouraging disruptive ideas. Anything new, a new technology, actually was in a meeting where the Minister of Communications, Ndate Mondli, was actually launching artificial intelligence a report, and we were with one of the CEOs, I'll quickly now think, these IT companies. Microsoft was actually there, and the solutions that he was talking about are exciting solutions. What these solutions can actually do today. And the one that actually intrigued me was the one that will just, if I have that solution in my iPad, all the emails, I'll be able to actually set it up in such a way that it focuses on important emails. And it gives me a report before end of the day on what is important, what I must read. And it prioritizes the messages in that way. And that is the work of 4IR. Is it disruptive? Yeah, it's encouraging us to get up and be actively involved in thinking and in doing things differently. But we know that most of the time, when there's change, there's resistance. In my thesis, which I hope some of you have accessed, and those that have not accessed it, please, is online. You're welcome to have a look at it. I've argued that it will be important that leaders, including those leading public sector organizations, need to make efforts on the collectivity and connectivity of technologies, seamless integration of data, effective use of digital tools for the benefit of society as a whole. I've also argued that those who lead the public sector, which works for the good of society during the era of 4IR, you are a leader in the public sector today. Leadership, for me, I'm defining it at different level of the organization, not the vice chancellor only. Different levels of the organizations, there's leadership. And those levels, I'm arguing that they need to have strategic mindsets and be courageous leaders that will massify digital skills, provisioning, massify digital skills provisioning by making sure that we break through the barriers of location. Let's apply ourselves to an extent that we are able to say, I can see you there in Northwest, somewhere in Mafikeng or rural areas of Northwest. You are able to join us today in this discourse, and you are able to actually register your ideas in as far as fourth industrial revolution is concerned. We've got to break the barriers of gatekeeping information. My research is accessible to someone that would know where to find credible research. Have I taken it out to someone out in the streets? Perhaps later in my paper or in my keynote I'll talk to that. I must also just make a comment. Program director, I was just a bit worried when I saw 25 minutes, and I said, I'm trying to summarize 6 years worth of work into 25 minutes, including experience. So I will really try to manage the time. But maybe you must also sort of try and help me. When I have 10 minutes, let me know so that I can quickly then move towards the end. So the mindset of our leaders today should be that of courageous leaders who are ready to inculcate, instill, implement, and massify digital skills provisioning in the country by embracing upskilling. Let people go to school. Let people get skills. Whether you upskill, whether you reskill, let us do that. Whether we'll, portable skills is now the phenomenon of today. When you're talking about higher education and training, whether in the skills, whether in the academic level, we know that skilling becomes, or it has always been important. And it is now much more important because we know, talking about the markets that are transitioning or that are changing rapidly. What was yesterday is no longer today. So the upskilling, reskilling, and having leaders that would understand and encourage that in their operations is actually very important. One of the most important recommendations of my study emphasizes how leveraging digital transformation will enhance public sector service delivery. But we'll also look at the contribution in strengthening our economy. If you have people that are skilled, that are relevant in their skills, that have got skilling that is responding to market challenges, we will then have young people that are absorbed in organizations and in business who will then be relevant and be able to actually contribute to the profits of those, or growth of those entities. Therefore, digital economy will also become an opportunity that then comes as a result of the reskilling and the multi-skilling. We have got, and I think this is one of the things that I've also recommended for public sector for us to begin to look at. In the public sector, we've got different ministries, fragmented, completely fragmented. This one is doing that, that one is doing that, that one is doing that. Let me tell you, when we come under one roof, we will be so shocked that we're doing the same thing. And everybody has a budget for the same thing. So my argument is that why are we not looking at technologies like your blockchain, which says, when I was still also just in business, growing up again, so many lives, I was an agent, strong supporter of decentralization. So when I got into MIT and I said, MIT, and I started looking at digital transformation, and we're looking at these concepts together, and we looked at the opportunities that are offered by this blockchain solution, we thought we can still be in a centralized environment, but you need to have tools such as your blockchain that will be able to help us navigate through these different structures, different systems, different processes. Because what it then does, it affords us the opportunity to be able to integrate. And the integration of systems, processes, affords us the opportunity to do more. Because with the budget that where we're all doing the same things in different areas, we will be able to bring everything under one pot and then maximize our efforts. So I have also recommended that we look at that as a state. But what I want to say also is that as a member of the ministerial committee, Professor Blade's committee, I do feel honored that we have started implementing some of the recommendations that have come out of this, my paper. We have, in the area of your TVET colleges, we've implemented infrastructure that is technology enabled across the country. We've got 50 TVET colleges, and across 50 TVET colleges, we have successfully managed to have infrastructure that is digitized. Whatever digitization means to you, we have looked at different solutions that will bring about analytics, that brings about automation, robotics, augmented reality. In the forestry subsector, for an example, we have successfully come up with solutions, real-time solutions that are assisting young learners to do practicals while in the field. The influence of digital transformation in the sector informed the agenda and outcomes of a highly successful CETA summit. 2-3 weeks ago, we had a CETA summit where we said, we've just started. We just started with the implementation of some of the recommendations that we have through the discussions we've had, of course. So when you have your research document, you need to be proactive. You need to go to the influencers. You need to go to your ministers. You need to go to the president and say, I think I've got a solution. And you need to be brave, is that I have a solution. And they'll give you an opportunity to say, okay, let's see what your solution is about. Then you start to influence discussions, to sell your recommendations, and the doors will be opened. That's where you'll be able to see that we are bringing research into the ground. Society will be able to understand what your work is all about. So we have established SPAT centers across all the TVET colleges, and those are running quite well. We had a skills summit where all 21 CETAs came together. Among others, we looked at how do we accelerate the implementation, actually the formulation of policies that embed 4IR, and how do we then also accelerate the implementation of artificial intelligence. Research in any case is fueled by curiosity and say it is, and some say it is formalized curiosity. Research which results in innovation is propelled by the ability to question, to interrogate new ideas, thoughts, and practices leading to change. That's what we want to do. When you've got that knowledge, let's implement it for change. I'm going to quickly run through the key words so that I can cover most of my work. So with research, you should be able to stimulate that change, which is very, very important. Looking at the work that was done by, I think it's, Menon and Castrillon, in that chapter where they're saying exploring the reimagination of higher education curricula for fourth industrial revolution. We are on it. We are on it. We're not yet there, but I can tell you the government is on it. The department is on it. We have, I think, those that are aware of the system, the QC2O is already transitioning, where we are saying we want to make sure that our qualifications respond to fourth industrial revolution. The qualification, the design of qualification is now different. We look at a qualification that will look at the curriculum in class, practicals, as well as work-based learning. But in the development of these qualifications, we're making sure that they are tailored by the technology. There's integration of technology throughout. We have got also, just quickly, the PSET system, the PSET committee that has been, PSET National Plan committee that's been established by the minister, which is now looking at all these fragmented policies. University, we've got policies for universities, and we've got, I served at Fort Hare as a council member. We have got a policy that talks to university, we've got policy that talks to TVET, we've got policy that talks to CETA, we've got, no. So the PSET national plan says, let's bring everything under one roof. Let's have these discussions, but we're going to make sure that 4IR plays a critical role in bringing about efficiencies and the ability for us to come up with policies that will be integrated post-2030. Rapidly changing markets, indeed. A need for design of curriculum, indeed, and the research is very, very important. I am now concluding. Have we fully responded? More or less, yes. Like I've said, the President has established the 4IR Commission, which he chairs, by the way. And the Deputy Chairperson is Professor Marola. I think we know about that. The Department of Communications has got the 4IR Committee that is also now looking at how we drive this in a much more systematic manner. And the Department of Higher Education and Training, and I think universities are also represented there. It's the 4IR Committee that is looking at how do we then embed the work of DESI, Department of Higher Education, Science and Innovation in the work that we actually do. How do we bring about efficiencies in the work that we actually do by recognizing and embedding technology? In terms of policy, we have to make sure that our national policies inculcate 4IR ethics, and 4IR very, very important as I move towards conclusion. Ethics and 4IR very, very important. The field of research and innovation in technology is, however, not without problems. Everywhere there are problems. We've got to make sure we understand what we are doing when we are in the space of research that talks to 4IR. What are the ethics that we need to be looking out for, and how do we avoid challenges? Of late, owing to some malpractices, there has been international coordination and investment in governance as concerned stakeholders look at the risk of society associated with research and innovation. Public dialogue over the role of science and the extent to which it can be allowed to reign free without clear guidelines or undertaking of ethical issues is fast emerging. Whatever we do, let's go back and say, what are the ethics behind the work that we are doing? Fortunately, with the discourse around collective responsibility in science and innovation, development is beginning to emerge. The world is beginning to question some of the so-called advancements in technology and science beyond simply managing the risk. The world is now clamoring the responsible research and innovation that should have minimal societal impact. Even social science disciplines should gear themselves to assess the impact of science and innovation of society. The example of ICT and data security or lack thereof is top of mind. All right, so in my concluding remarks, I wanted to say that I had also just had a quick read on the chapter that speaks to the TVET colleges for sustainable skills for fourth industrial revolution. I've looked at that, the snapshot of TVET. I think it was well written, very, very relevant. There is importance for us to look at realignment and realignment, but the realignment should then be informed by research and new strategies on how we continue to make sure that our TVET colleges are actually relevant. Once more, positively in South Africa, over the years, we know that South Africa is not new to technology. We've had groundbreaking initiatives like the CASCAN, the Sasol refinery extracting of oil from coal, and the economical solar power panels that are now used in the townships. We go to the townships, we've got a whole lot of those that are actually used. And these are coming from research that's been done in the country. In conclusion, one argues, and I also concur with the statement that the socio-economic context of research and innovation must be aligned to the values that needs must be aligned to the values, the needs and expectations of society. Society and research must be responsive and attuned to each other and collectively be responsible for science, education, be aware of pending research and how this will be conducted, and more importantly, have access to research results and be made aware of how the new knowledge will impact on society. I think it is Holmes that also said many ideas grow better when transplanted into other minds than those that they spring up and they are kept somewhere in a shelf, somewhere in the library, or to ourselves. So it's important for us to share this research, share these books, have these type of sessions to make sure that people get to understand what we, the knowledge that is actually emerging. The question that remains, and I think therefore becomes a challenge for us further, is will science, technology, and innovation offer society hope for a brighter future, or will it be our nemesis as we face challenges on several fronts, such as job losses, degradation of the environment, and the likelihood of other future catastrophes? With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to me. I hope that I have managed to add a bit to the work that's being done today and for the whole week. Thank you very, very much for lending me your ears, and wishing you everything of the best as we further deliberate. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Colleagues, Dr. Yende is so elegant because she's cautious to bombard us with her research. A few years ago, before Unisa, when we launched products, we would have this exquisite vision of a product. But here at Unisa, Dr. Yende, we have exquisite explorations and digging deep in research and methodology and intellectual conversations. So thank you very much for yours as well in your contribution. Colleagues, I did hold out on Dr. Yende's full resume. And I hope while she was speaking, it actually showed that Dr. Yende received the Minister's Award for recognition of being the most outstanding individual in the skills development at the National Skills Authority Awards for 2019, where she received the Gold Award for FEMSETA as the most outstanding SETA for its performance against the set targets performance. And also, she is the most influential, or received an award of the most influential woman in business and government, public sector visionary award, and the Kattenberg Award. And I would like for you to please give a warm applause, again, really warm applause for all these awards that you received. And so we're going into the second session now, where we're going to dig deep into those intellectuals that's going to come in front here and show us their research and results that they've received over the years, looking into fourth industrial revolution, colleagues. So our program says that we will welcome Dr. Pilani Ntembu. He's the Executive Director at the Institute for Global Dialogue, UJ. I hope he's going to link up with us online. And part of our panel discussion is also Dr. Martin Kahwa. He's the Executive Research Director at San Tambani Research Institute. Then we will also have Mr. Tiani Konyama, Director and COO of Key Culture and Strategic Lead of the Northern Cape Developer. I hope I said that right. And the person that is going to lead this discussion or facilitate this discussion, this intellectual discussion, is Mr. Patel, Ashraf Patel. He is one of the authors of the book called South African Confronts the Fourth Industrial Revolution Era, which deals with challenges, pathways, and possibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Patel, and he's going to facilitate the session for us.
Good afternoon, one and all. Thank you, Innocentia and team at the Unisa Press. Humble recognition and to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Lunkabela, Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation, Prof. Mayue, Unisa Press Director, Dr. Nsosane, and team, all protocols observed. So, as I said, I've been given a fairly, I call it a semi-easy, semi-difficult task, which is facilitator. But I've also been directed by our program director, Innocentia, to also sort of give the genesis of this journey of what actually gave the drive to move towards a publication around the 4IR. And I think the genesis goes back to sometime in 2019. And at the time, South Africa was in a kind of new administration, the sixth administration. And at that time, President Ramaphosa was new to the international scene. And like all leaders in the world, the first stop every year, they make a pit stop, as they call it, at Davos, which is where the World Economic Forum takes place, which is a very kind of elite grouping of, let's call it, the super elites of the CEOs, global leaders, large foundations, development financial institutions, etc. But at the time, it was quite interesting, and as kind of scholars engage in public policy, international relations, as well as the development domain, we had to look at what should the thrust be of the presidential approach. And at the World Economic Forum, it was quite interesting because that is the time many leaders pitch their kind of vision on where their societies seem to be going. And the president had a kind of vision that kind of leveraged off the emerging notions of the fourth industrial revolution, which at the time was gaining momentum. And that kind of represented a push from the global north. And we call it the narrative of the global north. Colleagues, scholars may recall that the 4IR actually emerges in a European context called Industry 4.0. And that is primarily the German approach on manufacturing and industrialization and applying new domains of technologies, i.e. Internet of Things, robotics, etc., etc. So it was quite an interesting journey. But another journey the president also undertook. In the same year, he was also appointed by the International Labour Organization, the ILO, to co-chair the Global Commission on the Future of Work. And that was quite fascinating. So we had our president engaging with a World Economic Forum, a fairly elitist discourse, but on the other hand, within the UN system, he co-chaired quite competently the ILO, International Future on the Commission of the Future of Work, which was, in our view as scholars in the development domain, a much more critical and rigorous analysis, a deep dive, if you like, on what are the implications of these technologies, these massive technologies. Today, everything is engulfed in one word, AI, which has literally taken the world by storm in the last several months. But at the time, the ILO is one of the more socially concerned institutions that are concerned about broadening the social base or implementing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, took a very, very more serious and critical approach and cautioned against the whole technocentrism. And I think this is where the genesis of the book emerged. And we found that quite fascinating as scholars, trying to make sense of where South Africa is going. And in the end, I think we came with a kind of hybrid model. On the one hand, the presidency and government was very robust and upbeat about 4IR. But on the other hand, the social actors, particularly in labor and communities, had a different view, a kind of alternative perspective and concerns on where this was going. And I think as we moved into 2020, the month of lockdown in March 2020, the global COVID lockdown, the pandemic, there was just no one could go to work. As scholars, you couldn't go on site, you couldn't go to universities, all conferences shut down, schools shut down. And for those several months of lockdown, a few scholars said, look, what are we going to do every day? I mean, I think most of you are in the same boat. And we then generated an idea among scholars to say, why don't you do that wish list, which was to kind of publish a book. And we thought, okay, it's an opportune time. And I think from that genesis, a few authors got together and we started communicating online and started a process of let's begin to look at the 4IR. But we took a very deliberate theoretical and analytical framework to state, let's look at a more critical sociology. I think Dr. Yende pointed up the role of sociologists in this debate, because at the time, the debate has been dominated, and even now in the mainstream media, by engineers and businessmen. And we thought it's an opportune time to broaden the debate and include communities, academics, people in TVET colleges, etc. And this is the result of 3 or 4 years of work. And all along on the journey, I must commend the Unisa press team, Jack and Innocentia and team that have been with us every step of the way. Because there was two parallel processes of launching a book. One is coordinating the content with a disparate group of academics or writers, and the other hand is an intense kind of administrative process of publishing. And my God, I mean, the publishing process or machinery or bureaucracy is quite phenomenal, and rightly so, in order to ensure the quality control, the quality assurance. And I think those two were very interesting learning curves for all of us. And that was the kind of genesis of the journey. But as the pandemic wore on, all kind of people that were involved in the services industry, let's call them middle class professionals, they managed to utilize and appropriate the 4IR, internet, broadband, and continued working as normal. I mean, all of us just transmigrated into Zoom or team meetings, if you recall. But what about the kind of work, the blue-collar workers? Many of those workers got left behind. And nothing was as stark in terms of the digital divide. Nothing was as stark when we looked at general education. So within general education, and there's lots of studies that have emerged, and 2 or 3 chapters in the book articulates that, South Africa's digital divide came starkly to the fore, where you had a kind of middle-class private school, Model C school students continuing as normal, continuing the education, especially at matric level, and surviving and thriving with the tools because they could afford it. They had the broadband. And then you had the masses, many of those in the townships, in the rural areas. When TVETs and universities closed, they went home to rural areas, and they were kind of locked out of the digital economy. And I think that was the biggest learning curve for us, quite a tragic learning curve, because all of this was taking place as the 4IR Commission was continuing its work on a very kind of techno paradigm. And we thought, no, let's bring in the other story, the alternative story of exactly where the digital divides, because the digital divides also mirror the developmental divides, whether it's infrastructure, literacy, socioeconomic divisions, etc., etc. And I think this was the stark kind of lesson of our journey. And over the months, and at the end, we took almost 2.5 to 3 years to complete the publications. So the publication itself is what is called a kind of labor of love, but also molded in the COVID and post-COVID years. Very complicated for countries in the developing South, like South Africa and others. And if we had it difficult, or large chunks of our population were kind of locked out, you can imagine our neighbors in Southern Africa and other countries in Africa. So I think it really brought to stark a kind of revisiting of our roles as academics, intellectuals, program implementers, on the importance of technology and finding solutions to broaden the socio-economic debates. And I think that is the clear message of the book. It takes a very critical discourse view, but it's also very celebratory of the successes, or some of the successes. And with that we said, look, we're going to launch the book, and hence it's called Challenges, Pathways and Possibilities, because there are challenges and they're huge, but there's also certain pathways that nation states can take, and that opens the door to new possibilities. And hence the theme or sub-theme of the book were challenges, pathways and possibilities. And we were quite clear in the book, and it was a collective effort, not only with the co-editors, but the entire author collective, that this book needs to go into not just the interesting sectors like fintech or services or telecoms, but all sectors. And so the book has 13 chapters, and every chapter covers a certain industry, be it manufacturing, mining, telecommunications, etc., etc. And I think that actually amplifies. And our journey continues. We have an esteemed panel that have taken the time out, and I thank them for their time. And all of them have a certain engagement with the 4IR at different levels, with different audiences. And within the broader CETA system, Dr. Yende has articulated very well the importance on the public service delivery component, and the role of academics and researchers to assist in enabling this massive divide as we move towards multiple goals and objectives. And I think this is a good framing for the panel that we have today. And maybe I could just start, and I'll give each panel time to articulate, or I hand over to Innocentia, or I can go to the panel. Okay, so I think this was the broader view. What's happening in 2024? So as the book evolved, and we ended the process in 2023, we also learned about the publishing industry, the importance of peer review. The peer review process itself took almost a year, which, although was frustrating, but in the end we appreciated that the quality and the durability of the product had the certification of quality, and we're happy with that. And that was also a learning curve for most of us. Fast forward 2024, 23, the new AI era is upon us. I think in the last 6 months, the artificial intelligence, or the chat GPT as they call it, or learning language models have become all the rage or trends, to such an extent that even today in the last several weeks, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has launched a new United Nations Council on AI. And he is concerned, the UN is concerned about the rapid diffusion of AI and its disrupting effect on every industry, from politics to society to community to labor to education. And it's a call to action for everyone to begin to engage in this topic. So I think this is the framework we face, and we have a fantastic panel that is well equipped to talk from their perspectives and take the book and its themes forward as we hope to roll out the book. It's our new launch, and we hope to have several launches over the year in different provinces and settings to take the debate forward, so it can become an inclusive debate that includes communities, SMEs, women-owned enterprises, youth-owned enterprises. It has to be at the center of the debate. If they don't learn how to appropriate the technologies, we're going to get further left behind. And the UN slogan is, leave no one behind. So we have to take that quite seriously in the work that we do. So without further ado, I'm going to go into panel. My first panelist that we have today is Dr. Martin Kahwa, close friend of the labor movement. He comes from the Sam Tambani Institute, which is associated with the National Union of Mine Workers. And Martin is going to articulate the very precarious situation of the mining sector and the impacts that new technologies are having on his sector and some of the challenges and pathways within that sector. So without further ado, Martin, I'll hand over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Martin Kagwa. I am from the Sam Tambani Research Institute, which is basically the research institute of the National Union of Mine Workers. I was telling a colleague that Sam Tambani is a name of a comrade from Venda. He was killed in 1993 as the NUM was protesting against the murder of Chris Hani. So when the National Union of Mine Workers started the Research Institute, they decided to name it under Sam Tambani. So in a brief, we call it SATRI. But what do we do as a Research Institute of the Union? I must tell you that before I joined the union, I was an academic. I should have been a professor by now if I did not desert academic institutions. I'm torn apart losing out being a professor vis-a-vis what I do now. And what I want to emphasize is that given the theme of this research, linking research with communities, there is a very huge gap that I found out when I joined research for the unions. For me, when I was in academics, I knew trade unionists as workers who trash things when they're unhappy. Really. I could only know about the union when they come out and the streets are blocked and they want a higher paycheck. Then I joined them. And it's a long story. But then they said to me, you know what? There are situations where, as workers, we need to engage in the boardroom. We may use those tactics you see in the street, but at the end of the day, we want to get our thoughts and perspectives in the boardroom. But sometimes we lack factual information. Or sometimes those who lead us don't experience what we experience. So we need to have a research institute that backs up our positions. What do we say? What do we do when we are given a chance to engage? So be the think tank behind us and create a team of people who can support us. Not on the street, but in the boardroom. And that's how I ended up working with the Sam Tambani Research Institute. Now, one of the key factors that we met, or I met in the union environment, remember the National Union of Mine Workers organizes in the mining, in the energy, the construction, and lately the metal sector. I want to go into politics of the union, but it is also another research area for the academics who are interested in that. But one of the key areas that is confronting the union, which cannot be fought on the street, is the fourth industrial revolution. Because they say this terminology was brought to them, and for them, it signifies a possibility of replacement of humans in the value addition and service distribution. And they say, but that's our space. If there are no jobs, if there is less human participation in the value addition, where does that leave us? Where does that leave and all the benefits we have achieved over time? So, I'm paraphrasing, say, Satri, you're the clever people, tell us, what should we do? Which side should we take? Understanding that without work, without workers, we don't exist. But more importantly, that the bigger chunk of society in a country like South Africa depends on the worker. Right. So we have been engaging on this topic of the fourth industrial revolution. And the first aspect that we agreed upon, which the workers asked, say, but what is the fourth industrial revolution? And colleagues, professors, and all intellectuals here, you may be shocked that we think we are talking about the same thing, but we don't understand the same thing. So it is important that it is clarity, that we can be able to articulate to somebody who stopped in grade 4 and is a mine worker, say, what is 4IR? Because that's what they ask. And I found out that people who have not been to universities or to academic institutions, they ask the hardest questions. I can promise you most of the theoretical, methodological questions you can ask me here, I can be able to answer them. But if a worker tells you, what does that mean for me and my family and the future of my kid that I'm taking to Unisa who's studying history? What do you respond? So those are the challenges that we have been dealing with in the mining sector. First of all, we recognized something that we wrote in this book, that technology, all the technologies that come in this era of the fourth industrial revolution, we call it an era. It is a period where technologies, very many technologies are coming together to influence value addition and how that value addition is being distributed and how services are rendered. And within that space, that's where we find the human element. The human element, or the so-called work, exists in the process of value addition, in the process of value addition or distribution, and also in delivering different services. So 4IR is introducing a number of technologies that are changing the complexity of that space. And when it does that, it creates sometimes contradiction and conflict between the human element and technology. And this cuts across all sectors. In this chapter in the book, we only look at mining, but we know that value addition happens everywhere. In fact, one of the recommendations we have done to the workers' constituency, that you need to be clear and interrogate where the value addition in the sector where you operate. And then identify those areas where technology is being introduced as part of the 4IR. And then ask yourself, if technology takes over that responsibility, do I remain relevant or don't I remain relevant? Is there anything I can do to remain relevant or not? And I know I'm simplifying, but understand the constituency I work for. It doesn't use fancy words. The conceptual framework and all the theoretical setup, it doesn't work for them. You have to bring the concept down to them and relate it to their fears and concerns. So in this chapter that we wrote, we try to demonstrate that the workers' community is mindful of the advantages that come with technology in mining. The 4IR technologies are improving exploration, that new mines can now be found, minerals can be found more easily. They are bringing robotics which can go underground where the safety of work is. is guaranteed, and they can prolong the mines. Nonetheless, there is also an element of displacement of a human element. And think about the work of yesterday. He went to the mining when he was in grade 2. The minimum requirement is being able to pronounce your name, because language was not an issue. Fagalo was there. There was a language they had created in the mine. So the chapter highlights the tension between taking advantages of technology vis-a-vis mitigating and managing the threats it can bring to human beings. And from a political point of view, you cannot only embrace efficiency, because who will buy all the products when you have achieved 100% efficiency in producing anything, but you have retrenched 80% of humankind? That's not quite a sustainable business model. So in this chapter, we try to capture that, but also to propose the way forward. And our proposals can cut across different sectors. Because 4IR is not only technical. It's not about 4IR robotics and artificial intelligence. It has a political dimension. It has an historical dimension. Whoever controls the technology and the data will control everybody. And it's being introduced in the countries which are poor. We have been poor for so long, and we are going to remain poor if nothing's done differently. So there are different dimensions of the 4IR. And putting all those things into consideration, we, in this chapter, we put some few proposals of what needs to be done in order to get a balance between taking advantage of the 4IR technologies and making human beings still be part of the value addition and livelihood. I know I was given 5 minutes, and I think they are done. But I just want to end with one comment. If Unisa wants to really connect research with communities, don't run away working with trade union and workers, because they're a very important link in what happens in the communities. A worker, each single worker looks after 5 people in the community. If you work with them, you can be able to identify more critical problems, but most importantly, you will be guided on those developmental issues that now and again, when I sit with a sack of intellectual, we miss. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that robust presentation, and one that also piques our consciousness as that sector, I think more than any other sector in the publication, is undergoing a kind of jobs bloodbath. I think in the last quarter in South African mining or major mining corporations have shed collectively 12,000 jobs. The big names, Sibanye, Anglo, Exaro, etc. So if you say 12,000 times 5, that's 120,000 people in our communities, or the marginal communities that are affected. And I think that is a very sobering reality. And Martin, as you spoke, I recall that in our research, we looked at how other countries in both the north, the global north and the global south, are beginning to engage. And some success factors or success stories is two. One in Germany, the big German union, IG Metall, they invest heavily in research or researching technologies. So much so that as a union, they have a 4IR factory. As a union, they own a kind of mini 4IR factory with all the technologies, the latest technologies. I think it's co-funded by the Ministry of Labor and Industry in Germany as part of their social dialogue. I found that quite innovative, and maybe something that we could explore in South Africa. But they then approach the whole technology from a shop floor perspective or community perspective, and they test every technology in this virtual 4IR factory to give an insight on what it will mean for production, for application, for the job roles that workers are meant to play. And that also feeds into their retraining programs. I really found that quite fascinating and food for thought for future research and programs that we could work with the CETAs and other institutions. And the other, of course, is the kind of technology power that's emerging, China. And there they have taken a very interesting route, but located within the industrial policy. So about 15 years ago, in 2005, almost 20 years ago, they launched a very strategic program at the highest level of government. And that was called Made in China 2025. And I tell you, if you read the document, it is one of the most detailed kind of industrial technology policy documents, and it has made waves. So already in 2005, the Made in China plan was the national industrial policy plan. And if you look at every sector, subsector, how they manage strategic innovation foresights, and they identified key areas where they're going to dominate and directed resources and R&D into every sector and every technology. And today you see the results, whether it's in autos, in smartphones with the Huawei's, etc., in the auto sector, in every sector from manufacturing to mining to 5G, they are now on par with the best, let's say, in the north. And that is an example when a state acts in unison. I think Dr. Yende mentioned there's too many silos in South Africa. And do we have an integrated kind of state approach in managing where we want to go? And that's called a developmental state approach with solid industrial policies and a massive innovation system, as well as a financing system behind it. And I think that that's an example of a super approach in managing this 4R. So two very interesting case studies that hopefully we can further amplify in future research. I'm now going to introduce our colleague, I believe, Mr. Tiani Ingonyama from the Northern Cape ecosystem, geek culture, and why we chose, and I think it's very important, to get some of the younger voices involved, a community tech voices. These are the ecosystem or incubators in our communities, and they have a voice as well, and some interesting stories that Tiani will articulate going further. Tiani, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, colleagues.
Good afternoon.
You know, I normally introduce myself as, hi, I'm Tiani from Guyana. And it is really an honor to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. And I have been enjoying the book, started reading it from Friday. And there are some really interesting perspectives. So in terms of who I am, okay, I am Tiani from Guyana. But I'm the co-founder and CEO of an organization called Geek Culture. Geek Culture seeks to build a culture of geeks in South Africa, building tech activism and ensuring that young techies are able to rally behind and build solutions that are meaningful. And I am also the strategic lead for the Northern Cape developer ecosystem, but I will talk about the Northern Cape developer ecosystem because we have created a model that would be relevant to the discussions here today. I also wear many hats. I serve in various steering committees, including the Open Data South Africa project, which support the Open Government Partnership under the Department of Public Service and Administration. Also serve on the National AI Strategy Development for the Minister of Science and Innovation, and also various continental AI strategies development as such. But my work mainly is centered on ensuring that the youth, the young technologists are able to create solutions. So as Geek Culture, we strive to create and enable platforms for innovation and creativity. And hence we do a lot of radical innovation development programs, including hackathons, datathons, mapathons, and ideathons as such. We do a lot of this work here in South Africa, but also internationally, Lesotho being one of the other key countries in which we have got a strong focus with the Ministry of Finance and the IMF there in ensuring that young technologists are able to build solutions. But in the 4IR context, the key interest from our side, and this is what I told the President in 2022 when I had a meeting with him on a program named Tata in the Eastern Cape, is ensuring that firstly, are we taking care of the basics? And the book does highlight that in ensuring that basic services need to be sought after. But in that sense, from the perspective of leaving no one behind, we sort of like looked at this to look at it and say that it needs to ensure that these three things are considered in sequence: the people, the process, and then the tools. From the people's perspective, we've spent quite a lot of time doing end-user research, trying to understand digital literacy, barriers, access levels in marginalized communities. This is the project I led with the British High Commission of Pretoria, and we have done end-user research in all 9 provinces in marginalized communities, looking at people living with disabilities, the elderly, women and girls, looking at low-income areas as such. And we had to go through a focus group style to understand what are their immediate needs as far as digital literacy is concerned. And we found a number of challenges in that journey. And one of them, which was quite interesting, especially in the areas of Mpumalanga, was essentially how young girls feared to get into the digital world. You might find that there is a computer lab in a community, but it will be based in a chieftaincy. And in a chieftaincy, you are required to only wear a dress. And some girls expressed that they're reluctant in terms of accessing digital literacy points. And also a whole range of other challenges. But it painted a picture from where are the barriers, because it does encompass a whole lot of things. But the digital culture amongst community members was one of the most interesting things to see, because nationally the president, the minister for digital communications, the minister for the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies will be talking 4IR, the fourth industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution this, the fourth industrial revolution that. But what does it mean for the people? But most importantly, are the people on the ground ready to consume, firstly? But we need to also ensure that we are enabling a space where we've got producers. What does it mean for someone in a rural community? So as part of digital literacy and user research, we also conducted trainings, and it taught them through a range of things in terms of what they needed. I remember in the Northern Cape, a 76-year-old lady who asked us that, can you please teach me how to send a letter electronically? So those were just some of the things. Another lady said, I want to open my cleaning business. Can you teach me through how to do that digitally? And we also took them through a journey that you can be able to participate in the economic development. You can be able to write a document, format a document, sign a document, and send that document without leaving your home. Because as some expressed to us, we had to look at certain dynamics as to how much do you spend to go and access a computer. And some indicated to us that they would leave their rural village, they will spend 40 rand on taxi. And then get to the CBD, you have to pay about 30 rand to use the internet, but also you have to pay someone to type a CV for you. When you're done, that CV still needs to be sent. That cost structure painted the reality in terms of what is the cost of being connected to the digital world, but also what's really the cost of the 4IR for people on the ground. And then in terms of the process itself, they mentioned that I am from the Northern Cape Developer Ecosystem. So I created the Northern Cape Developer Ecosystem in 2015 under the guidance of the Minister for Science and Technology, Dr. Naledi Pandor, who is now in international relations. So that was a way to ensure that you build a tech ecosystem in a rural community like that. And the Northern Cape Developer Ecosystem served that purpose, but most importantly, it was a journey as to how do we localize and also contextualize the needs of the province or rural communities as such. So the Northern Cape Developer Ecosystem then became that engine to essentially build, firstly, the capacity, build the interest, and that was quite crucial. Build the interest, because we cannot always just go and impose these trainings in rural areas. You need to build the interest, you need to build the leisure for young innovators to be able to say that we understand this fourth industrial revolution thing you're talking about. We want to be producers. So we went through a journey of localizing and created the Northern Cape Developer Ecosystem, but then also from a tools perspective. All right. Yeah, so from a tools perspective, obviously we need to look at tools that are essentially fit for purpose, and more equally ensure that we have more producers than consumers. We need to create that enabling environment for creation of these solutions. But in my other role from the Open Government and Open Data South Africa project, one of the crucial things there is that we have created a set of South African data sets and provide these data sets to young innovators to be able to create new solutions. There are solutions such as Guardian Health and and deep health solutions as such that were created from open government data. And that project, we see it as crucial as one of the enablers. And my parting shot is that I think that the book emphasized the issue of skills. We need to look at how do we upskill the people. One of the encouraging things is that the Department of Basic Education would release the framework for training new teachers. And what I love about that framework is that a new kind of teacher, the basic threshold should be that the teacher must be equipped with digital skills. And then from a public service perspective, and I was glad to see the National School of Government in here as well. So we need to imagine the next kind of a public servant. And for sure, digital literacy still lack in the public service. I build systems even for presidential programs. It's still sad in terms of ensuring that the public service get to that culture of being welcoming, being confident to use these solutions, and ensure that we're able to realize the full vision of the fourth industrial revolution. And I thank you in that.
Thank you, Tiani, from a community-based perspective. And I think we have a full spectrum of views, community, labor, etc. It reminds me of some of the challenges we face, and the book articulates that, in fact, one author says, we're talking about the 4IR when large swaths of South Africa are stuck in the 2IR, which is quite a sobering reality. So huge challenges on infrastructure provision. How do we address the high cost of data? Has our government and the Department of Communications that has been articulating this for several years, for the last 20 years, we still have one of the highest data costs in the world. So these are public policy issues that need further articulation. So those are all interesting points of note, and hopefully for future research. Without further ado, I'm going to briefly introduce Bongani Maimele from the National School of Government. In fact, we connected just a week or two ago at the conference on digitalization and sustainable development in Cape Town, and we had a fascinating few days discourse and dialogue on the whole sphere of digitalization. And what was interesting, it was a kind of international event that included nations from the global south, Indonesia, Mexico, India, Nigeria, Germany, etc. And this was, Bongani will tell you, robust debates on challenges and opportunities on IT or technology for development and service delivery. So without further ado, I'll introduce Bongani to say some words.
Good afternoon, colleagues, academics, and everyone who has made time to join us here today, and a warm congratulations to Ashraf, Patel, Pilani, and Mondli on the publication of this book. I always do not like to speak first, and also I'm scared to speak last because people have spoken some of the ideas. Then I'm officially authorized to plagiarize some thoughts. But I really love the title of the book. South Africa Confronts the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Challenges, Pathways and Possibilities. It's an excellent title that is chosen for the book because it highlights different stages that I would like to touch on as part of my response to the book and also to the keynote address that was given. Who are we as South Africa? Can we define ourselves? South Africa is a very diverse country in terms of nationality, economy, geography, and everything that you can think about. And when we emerged from the post-apartheid, from the struggle against apartheid into the democratic government, we committed to build what we call a united, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous South Africa. And the Fourth Industrial Revolution, as some of the chapters there say, we need to debunk the myth. Depending on which spectrum you stand on, you can debate how are we going to confront the national question when we are confronted from time to time with emerging trends such as the Fourth Industrial Revolution. My view is that the Fourth Industrial Revolution is not an enemy, but is an accelerator of building what we call a united, non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic, as well as a prosperous South Africa. But it also presents challenges because when we try to build to a certain stage of development, then we are confronted. That's why I say the title, South Africa Confronts. But South Africa does not only confront, but is also confronted by the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and it needs to respond to that. Otherwise, if we do not respond in a way that embraces it, we are going to miss opportunities because the Fourth Industrial Revolution actually creates opportunities for us to build a society that we aspire as we have laid in our constitution. For me, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, like I said, let's debunk the myth, is not an enemy. It is an accelerator. it makes things possible. In a sense that, for example, with newer, safer technologies, smarter technologies, we promote inclusivity in the mining and also in sectors that previously only able-bodied people will participate in that. And when we allow people to participate through the aid of the fourth industrial revolution, safer technologies, smarter technologies, we encourage economic participation that leads to economic prosperity, which is the prosperous South Africa that we have envisaged in our constitution. It creates inclusivity and also builds unity within our nation, because currently, as most of us would remember, President Beki once said, South Africa is a country with two nations, one rich and the other one extremely poor. And when you look at the geography of innovation and the geography of the fourth industrial revolution in South Africa, it still mimics what President Beki said with regards to two nations. The fourth industrial revolution, if not carefully managed, will also create a rift. But if we manage it well, it will unite us as South Africans through economic participation that will de-racialize the economy and promotes inclusivity. The pathways, as the book says, are there, but they are challenging. What is the most suitable pathway for South Africa, given the divides that we have, the divides with regards to, like I said, the geography of innovation and the geography of technology is still centered and concentrated within urban areas and also favors those who have economic means. But the fourth industrial revolution makes things, or has the potential to make things affordable, make things more accessible through these technologies and artificial intelligence. It makes education and knowledge accessible. Previously, most people within or confined to deep rural areas will not have access and will still miss up on the opportunities. And Ashraf just mentioned, one of the barriers here in our pathways is the data cost in South Africa. But the digital divide also exists, not only in terms of access to smart devices, which I think our country has really made great inroads. Almost everyone in South Africa has a smart device, but the problem remains connectivity and the price of data or data, whichever way you call it. And that still creates these divides between the rich and the poor, and has a potential to create that rift if not well managed. So, like I said, the pathways are, however, not easy, as they are competing interest as well, because South Africa is an idea of which only the ideas of those who govern at a particular point in time wish to shape our society. So, through various forms of legislation and government interventions, the government is trying to put in place various mechanisms and measures, including policy instruments, to make sure that everyone participates in the digital economy. I just want to check one point that here. Also, the fourth industrial revolution, previously, most people would, what Diane said, efficient transactioning. Most people would not have the resources to participate in the economy through transport, needing to go and print your CV, type your CV. But with the fourth industrial revolution, you don't need to incur all those costs anymore, because you can do most of these things at the comfort of your home. And with all that, it creates to the building of that democratic and prosperous South Africa that we need. And as the public service also, we are working towards building a more digitally inclusive public service, because we believe that by doing so, we would touch on even people that are in remote areas of our country. And one classic example, which is very recent actually, colleagues would agree with me, is the South African Social Security Agency payment of the social relief distress grant, the 350s. When we went into COVID-19, SASSA took it upon itself and made sure that millions and millions of South Africans actually have access to these payments using USSD technology, without people going to queue and apply for these things at the offices of SASSA, which would not have been possible during COVID-19 because we went into deep lockdown. But with innovation and use of technology, that 350 grand today is accessible to many people. And also with digital transformation, today we do most of our licensing payment of utilities and everything online. And this cuts the cost of transitioning and save the much needed resources that could be invested elsewhere. So again, I congratulate you, Ashraf, and colleagues on this wonderful book, and wish you well, and wish all of those who are going to buy it to read and also engage with it. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for that, Bongani. And of course, the National School of Government is a very important institution, part of the Department of Public Service, and we thought that Unisa also a kind of natural partner to Unisa, as Unisa has capabilities in digital online service delivery that can reach a wide audience in every corner of the country. Every city or municipality or town council is available on the Unisa system. And so hopefully this meeting will also spur kind of partnerships that we could strengthen as the months go forward. And it also reminds me, Bongani, at the workshop when we connected, one of the issues was the 4IR there are differentials in the Global South. So, the term Global South is also a very nebulous concept, but there's also hierarchies. And does South Africa form part of the upper rank, the middle rank, or more the lower rank? And I think the jury is still out. If you look at countries like Indonesia or Mexico, I was quite fascinated at their kind of different levels of how they've used digitization in terms on the service delivery side. Whereas we also have, I would say, pockets of excellence, but we also have gaps. For instance, the book covers a few of the gaps, like the driver's license debacle, where we've only have one machine that can print driver's license, and when that breaks down, it has to go to Europe to get repaired. So that case study talks about where were the skills, what are the kinds of intellectual property clauses that we negotiate when we negotiate with service providers. So it brings to bear some of the discussions that we should articulate or further develop. So that is the 4IR side. I know now we're moving in part 2. Do I hand over to Innocentia or do I introduce Professor Evans? I'm flexible. Oh, okay. You want to?
You can go ahead.
Okay. So now we move into phase 2, culture. Culture is central to development, to technology. I don't think any nation state, particularly in the global north, none of those leading societies of the OECD or the G7, now the G20, none of those leading nations ever developed without a broad-based kind of cultural view of the world. So 4IR is basically Industry 4.0, which is literally Germany's view of manufacturing. Made in China is a Chinese-centric view. The Americans have their big tech, which is a very kind of free market or capitalist view of the world. And I think, what is our view? How do we appropriate an Afrocentric culture in the 4IR, in publishing, in the digital world? And without further ado, we'll hand over to Professor, let me get the name right, Professor Evans Nechivambe. I must get that right. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Colleagues, thank you so much for the opportunity and great presentation indeed. I think we are moving to the right direction with 4IR. As you were speaking, I was just reminded that, even international bodies such as UNESCO that are very much interested in preserving our heritage and our cultures. They push for countries to make sure that they find ways of preserving this knowledge that they have, this indigenous knowledge and their cultures. And of course, it depends on each country what it does, where it prioritizes its plans and what have you. So of course, Department of Arts and Culture will be the runner for that, to make sure that heritage is preserved, and we're making sure that what we believe it's our very own, it's used also in education or in institutions of higher learning. So my book, titled Invisible or Ignored, which now looks at the status of indigenous instruments in the Venda community. It basically talks about how these instruments that we always see and know in the villages, they always stay in the villages. It's very rare that you can find them in the cities and in the spaces where there's a lot of robust thinking, robust discussion about preserving this knowledge and these indigenous instruments. So when I was engaging with the practitioners or the performers, I also thought to myself, it's good that I learn these instruments. I must buy them, I must learn them, bring them to the education system, show them to the students. Let's talk about them. What are ways we can use to preserve them, make them more attractive to students. Because when we come to universities, it's very rare to find a student who's saying they're playing a dende instrument like this one as their first instrument of choice. They would rather choose violin or piano or guitar or any other instrument that it's already developed and modernized. But what about our indigenous instruments? What are we doing to make sure that they are also attractive to students? And this was actually the motivation for writing this book, because most people who play these instruments are elderly people. And I saw that there is no way of skill transfer from the elderly to the young ones, but at least if we document and we talk about it and we make sure that there are ways to make sure that these instruments are preserved, they are used at schools, it will spark a debate, and scholars and students will at least become more interested. So I've just brought two instruments with me just to show you. It's the mbira and the dende instrument. In fact, I wanted to play just something for you just to make sure that you just relax your mind from thinking and so the song that I'm going to play, I composed it myself, so I learned from them, how to compose, how to write, and of course, this is how we can preserve this knowledge and take it further and teach to the students how they can actually even write their own songs, how they can actually use these instruments and even build them, which is something very important, because these indigenous instrument players, they don't just play the instruments, they even build them. So the song that I'm going to play, it's a song that is talking about a young girl who does not listen to her parents. So basically they are warning her that you have to be a good girl, otherwise you will suffer loss. So the song, it's called Marubini. Vana vano maduva avafizwa vatukana vafunesa zva vatukana uwelele vana vano maduva avafuni na chikoro uwelele vafunesa vatukana avayi chikoloni uwelele avajeni na chikolo uwelele vana vano maduva Awaina buhadzi, uwelele. Right. So I have learned to play all these instruments that I was learning about from these elderly people in the village and in the community. So connecting the community with academia, with the industry itself, it's very important because the real things happen in the community. As one of the panelists also mentioned, that we need to make sure we connect with the community because that is where we get the real thing, the real problems. And I believe that the more we talk about these problems that are confronting us as scholars, as academics, as researchers, and as thinkers, the better it will be for the coming generations to be able to use this knowledge for themselves. It is very sad that most of us, when we come to universities, when we want to learn music in particular, the only thing you find is Western music. Sometimes you can find jazz. You can't find African music. And if you are really interested in learning African music, if there is no content available, you will also just decide to choose from whatever that the university offers. And if I can just give you one example, I had a colleague who wanted to learn an indigenous instrument. He wanted to play a kora instrument. I don't know if you know what kora instrument is. It's an indigenous African instrument. There was no one to teach him. There was no instrument for him to learn. So he ended up learning piano. He learned piano for 4 years, but guess what? After he graduated, he started hunting for kora players and to find where he can get a kora instrument, and he taught himself. He learned the instrument. He started writing about it. Now he started performing all over and he was going overseas, but using the instrument he taught himself. The university did not teach him. He did not get it from the university. So this is what we are trying to change with books such as this, to say, let us make sure that there's enough content for our students to learn so that they can change the world for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. How's that for entertainment? I think just before we go out, you might just, we might just call you to do the other instrument as well. I really thoroughly enjoyed that. Congratulations to the authors of our 2 new books that we've launched today. Dr. Nechevembe holds a music composition of the University of Witwatersrand and is currently a music lecturer at the Department of Arts and Music at Unisa. Now we're swiftly going to move on to the last, perhaps, intellectual discussion of the day with Professor Ngubane. He has been online with us since the beginning of our program. He's the chairperson of ANFASA. Long, it actually means Academic and Non-Fiction Authors Association. I hope we will be able to get him onto the projector here. Professor Ngubane, is it possible that you can hear us?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Standing very welcome, and you can go ahead with your presentation.
Okay. First and foremost, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all authors and the Unisa Press for hosting such a wonderful event. And I would like to observe all the protocol. I have heard that there is a Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation, Professor Meyi, who's my former colleague at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I'm very grateful to be in the list, and the rest of the colleagues, the director, and also I was very impressed by the keynote speaker by Dr. Yende. Most of the issues raised as discussion points are some of the summary that I'm going to present to you this afternoon, and thank you very much. And today's remarks are a testament to the incredible journey and effort behind the creation of academic works. The intersection of science and society is a crucial area where research and innovation can drive significant societal impact. And the theme, Bridging the Gap, involves several key strategies that ensure scientific advancement are effectively translated into social benefits. And I've highlighted a few points here. In order for us to achieve this, we need to have public engagement and science communication, which is vital in making scientific research accessible and understandable to the public through public outreach programs such as public lectures, science festival, and interactive workshop. By utilizing media and social media platforms to disseminate scientific findings in an engaging and comprehensible manner, incorporating contemporary scientific topics into school curriculum and promoting STEM education. I think Dr. Ayende touched on the issues of curriculum, and I think if we promote the STEM education, we will capacitate our students to be on top of the fourth industrial revolution. The second point is interdisciplinary and participatory research by encouraging research that integrates perspectives from various fields and can address complex societal challenges. By involving community members, we can align research with societal needs and establish projects from different disciplines. I'm glad that the book covers almost the majority of the core industries that will benefit out of this. And the third observation is the policy integration and advocacy may ensure that the research findings lead to actionable societal benefit. Scientists can play an active role in the policy-making process by concise and accessible reports for policymakers that highlight the implication of scientific research, advisory roles by establishing committees and panels, advocacy and lobbying. The fourth observation was that was also been alluded by the previous speakers, the industry collaboration and innovation ecosystems to strengthen the connection between academia and industry can enhance the application of research to solve real problems. This can be achieved through public-private partnership between universities, research institutions, and industries to co-develop technologies and innovations, innovation hubs and incubators, funding and investment. So bridging the gap between science and society requires a multifaceted approach that involves effective communication, interdisciplinary collaboration, policy integration, industry partnership, ethical consideration, and robust impact assessment. By fostering these elements, we can ensure that research and innovation not only advance scientific knowledge, but also lead to tangible societal benefits. Touching on the fourth industrial revolution, we need the 4IR characterized by the fusion of physical, digital, and biological technologies that presents unique challenges and opportunities for our country. This revolution has the potential to significantly transform various sectors, but it also requires strategic planning and adaptation to ensure that the benefits are maximized and challenges are effectively addressed. To highlight a few challenges, one may cite the digital divide. Access to technology remains a huge challenge due to the disparity in access to digital technologies and internet connectivity, particularly in rural areas and underserved urban areas. Affordability is one of them. Education and skills gap. I'm glad that the keynote speaker touched on that the government is doing something on upskilling our youth. So this education and skill gap has already been addressed. We are aware that our education system does not adequately prepare the workforce for the demands of 4IR, which requires advanced technical skills and digital literacy. There is a need for continuous learning opportunities to keep pace with rapidly evolving technologies. ICT infrastructure, including high-speed internet and reliable electricity. We've been experiencing load shedding recently. Thank God it has stopped for a while. Hampers the adoption of 4IR technologies. We still have outdated regulations that are not suited to the new business models and technologies emerging from 4IR, such as artificial intelligence and blockchain, which has already been mentioned before. Another challenge is economic disparities caused by unemployment due to the automation of jobs. Small and medium enterprises may struggle to compete and adapt to the new technological landscape due to capabilities and resources. Touching on the pathways, I think enhancing digital infrastructure, broadband expansion will be ideal to ensure that all regions are connected. Development of smart city initiative that leverage artificial intelligence technology to improve urban infrastructure and services. Education and skills development through curriculum reforms to integrate digital literacy and advanced technology courses into national education. And also issues of vocational training programs focus on technical skills relevant to 4IR, such as coding, data analysis, and robotics. Public awareness and engagement to raise awareness about the benefits and risk of 4AR technologies. Stakeholder engagement must include the private sector, academia, and civil society in the development and implementation of 4IR technology strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, confronting the fourth industrial revolution in South Africa involves navigating significant challenges while harnessing the pathways and possibilities to drive socio-economic transformation. By enhancing digital infrastructure, reforming education, fostering supportive policies, and promoting inclusive growth, South Africa can leverage 4AR technologies to achieve sustainable development and improve the quality of life for all its citizens. Coming back to the second book on the indigenous, invisible or ignored, and the status of indigenous African instruments in the Venda Society by Professor Mchivande, one can respond to say that in most institutions like the one in KwaZulu-Natal University, we do offer ethnomusicology as a module, and our students also are equipped with manufacturing this instrument. But in order for me to respond to the question of the status of indigenous African instruments in the Venda Society, one may state that Bavenda has a rich cultural heritage including a diverse array of indigenous musical instruments. This has been highlighted and demonstrated this afternoon. These instruments play a crucial role in the social, cultural, and spiritual life of the Venda people. In Imbira or thumb piano consists of metal tines attached to a wooden board, as we saw, played by plucking with the thumbs, which is also one of the outstanding and amazing instruments. Rumba and Chikona pipes are also commonly used by Venda people. There are ongoing efforts to revive and preserve traditional Venda music and instruments. Cultural festival and educational programs aim to educate younger generations about their heritage. Digital archiving platform can preserve these cultural artifacts. The indigenous instrument of the Venda Society holds significant cultural value and are integral to the community's identity and traditions. While modernization and economic challenges pose stress to their preservation, ongoing efforts in education, cultural revival, and innovating integration with contemporary music offer pathways for sustaining and celebrating this rich musical heritage. By addressing these challenges and exploring new possibilities, the Venda Society can ensure that its traditional instruments continue to play a vital role in its cultural landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by congratulating all the authors today, Mr. Tembo, Pilani, Mondli Hlachwayo, Ashraf Patel, and Evans Netivambe, for their achievement in their publications. The depth and the nuance they bring to the advancement of knowledge in South Africa is truly remarkable. I cannot wait to hear what everyone thinks of these fantastic books. Once again, congratulations on this remarkable achievement. Your hard work and talent have given us an insight that will surely leave a lasting impact. Thank you for allowing me to make few remarks, and thank you for considering ANFASA, Academic and Non-Fiction Authors Association, to be part of your event. We are also involved in book publishing, mainly promoting indigenous languages. In February of this year in Pretoria, we launched 21 books, including sign language book, to promote indigenous languages and also to promote voices that have been silenced over the years. And I want to say thumbs up to the Unisa Press, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ngubane, and thank you for your observations, and I hope your observations have inspired our audience to come up with questions, statements, and comments. I will be handing over to Dr. Ntwesani, who will field the question and answers, comments, and observation session. And my fellow colleagues, I know the program was a bit long, but it was not boring. It was quite informative and very impressive. So with that said, I'm handing over. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. I'm told the questions are all directed to me, and there's one question that needs to be asked, and I have an answer. The question is, how much is the book and where to find the book? So, the books are outside. They are less than 500. But for the sake of peace, I'll open a question on the floor. I think maximum 3. Hi, Etta.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's wonderful that we are at a point where science and culture can interact in the sense that the potential is now there. Our author can tell us, Dr. Nechivambi, how, that we can actively use technology to spread the word about these wonderful instruments, and that we can possibly record a lot more of Tshivenda music. That's quite exciting for us at Unisa Press.
Thank you, Heta. Let's take those questions. I think that one is directed to you, Prof. Nechivambi. Going one, going Sam.
I actually had a question. I'm sorry, I'm struggling to operate this machine. I actually had a question for Mr. Patel. I haven't looked into the intricate details of what your book entails, but recently I was part of a conversation about, Africa also being not only just receiving the technology from our BRICS sister countries and the Americas as well, but also how can we contribute to the 4IR. So I wanted to know if you have any opinion on that. And then, of course, with creation, there is destruction, and there's this ominous issue that we're all facing globally in terms of climate change and e-dumping, which countries like Nigeria have been victims of, and, the illegal mining of the material that is being used that has lost, that I have forgotten now. So I just wanted you to comment on those two things, so the creation and also the management of the destruction in terms of sustainability.
Thank you, Sam. Dr. Yende.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mine is more of a comment to Doc. When he was actually presenting, I was reminded of the conference I attended in Paris, the UNESCO conference, where we had different countries that are actually talking about for education at large, but there was more and more interest that actually came from different leaders across the world, where they were pushing forward the importance of bringing and emphasizing culture at the basic education level, but not only culture at the basic education level, also including issues of digital technology, 4IR, and all of this. So the areas, and actually today's launching of 2 books for me just also reminded me of those deliberations, that these 2 books, we might easily just look at them separately, but actually they talk to each other. So it was a very, very important deliberations that we had for over 5 days or so, just focusing on how do we improve education globally, but how do we also bring culture and digital technology to actually improve the standards of education in the world. So I think really the books are on the right track. Thanks.
Thanks. Prof, we'll start with you, and then we'll get your comment. And my colleague there at the back will be ready to thank everybody.
Can you hear me?
Just try to, yeah.
Aha, thank you. 4IR. I think with regards to the first question, yes, it's very important to also use these platforms of 4IR to make sure that the book is accessible to colleagues and friends and to the world at large. I think so far what has been happening, it's word of mouth. For most people that I know have been able to access the book through word of mouth or through friends and what have you, but I think we should take an advantage of 4IR and make sure that the book is digitally accessible. I've also had people who were asking, I'm sorry if I'm exposing you, who were asking, we can't find the book online, and I was like, I don't know, I'll find out why it's not accessible online. So I think we should take advantage of 4IR and make sure.
As in digital copy?
Yes. Like when they go online, they can't find it. All right, yeah, so of course we can make sure we use these tools to their maximum to make sure that we are able to, reach out to everyone. With regards to the second observation, you are very right. I mean, the two are not separate at all. They are friends, they are cousins, they are brothers and sisters, these books, because 4IR intends to not leave anything behind, be it its culture, be it its whatever it is. But we also need to make an informed decision which is based on an intent to make sure that we do not leave the arts and the culture behind as well. Because in most cases, the arts, particularly in Africa and South Africa, if I may be specific, the arts are always seen as by the way, They are not roped in when it comes to education. And it's rather a sad reality that even if you look at our basic education and our education system itself, it prioritizes more of maths and science and the other sort of so-called most important subjects, but the arts are always behind. But if we can find a way of taking them along, they will also make sure that, academics, they will make sure that there is this connection between culture, arts, and technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
I didn't know how to use that.
That's all right. No, please. No worry.
Thanks for the questions. Look, the whole 4IR has different narratives or discourses. So obviously, we're looking at the full spectrum across the world, and in international relations and development cooperation, as well as all the line ministries. There's a lot of debate on what are the different pathways. Hence, a key theme is pathways. So the mainstream narrative, as we've articulated, is the World Economic Forum, but it comes more from the OECD, the very industrialized nations. Within the Global South, the dominant grouping is the BRICS nations, and they have evolved a kind of unique concept, especially in the major areas of global issues, particularly technology and climate change. So what the BRICS nations are evolving, and it's quite an interesting dynamic, is what is called digital industrialization. And that seems to come a lot from the Chinese approach, their view being that you cannot separate the digitization from industrialization. They believe it has to be integrated, and that is the story of their success. So they do not believe in the notion, the simplistic notion of leapfrogging, which is a very easy linear way of saying, okay, Africa, you can just leapfrog into the 4R. They believe that the hard work is firstly in industrialization, and with that you need a developmental state, and the UN institutions such as the UN Industrial Development Organization, UNCTAD. There's a lot of good case studies around that. And so it's a fascinating debate for scholars to look into these two different narratives. The same thing with energy. There's a kind of mainstream thing called just energy transition, which is very much a G7 EU model. It's not a UN thing. The UN still talks about what is called the right to development. There's actually the United Nations right to development, and there they enshrine industrialization, the use of resources for development, for national development within the UN charters. So that seems to be lost. Where the alternative view from Global South is coming along, they're talking about, the BRICS nations is talking about green industrialization. And when you read the summit, the communiques, you begin to see a much more broad-based development approach. So there is discourses, and in academia we're looking at all options, what is relevant for Global South, as well as South Africa. So I think that seems to be the narrative. E-waste is a huge issue globally. Africa has over 1 billion smartphones or cell phones, laptops. Global South is a dumping ground. And I think the EU has come to the realization that they are putting a lot of programs on what is called circular economy. And that is where some African countries are taking up the programs. But we are still a net, sub-Saharan Africa is a net dumping ground for e-waste. And yes, I think the Department of Environment has launched an e-waste plan, national master plans in some areas, and one of them is e-waste. So within there's scope to look at recycling and repurposing of these metals and all of that. But it's a big debate. It's current, and it as the book says, it's only hopefully volume 1, and hopefully every 2 years we can publish a follow-up edition as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, colleagues. I'm sure colleagues have got a lot of questions. I'll give a concession. If there's still many, I'll leave my email address. Let's send them there and make sure they're responded. Is that a fair concession? I realize we are 30 minutes behind time. And I'm really sorry that we're running late. So my email address for those who want to send questions, who don't have it or comments, is nthOEMG, N for November, T for Tango, H for Hotel, O for Oscar, E for Echo, M for Mike, G for Golf, at unisa.ac.za. If you still have comments, please let's send them there.
We've got a question online.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't see.
Can
All right.
you go into chat there?
Oh, yes. Oh, my apology. ER, 4IR. 4IR. The concession, can we take that question? Please forgive me. I'm just going to read as the colleague up here, PK Naika. Please forgive me. Please go ahead.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. So I'm just going to be very, very brief in terms of my comment. A very good evening to all. I just want to recognize the chairperson or program director, together with the rest of the invited guests. Also would like to recognize my Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Yende. I have been reading certain excerpts from the book on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I must say it's it is an excellent value add, and it makes an excellent contribution to the 4IR discourse. It contains, I must say, very appropriate, relevant chapters, and it opens doors for further engagement, and in terms of academic debate as well. But I also would like to add that it would be nice to also include the work of my CEO, Dr. Yende, in terms of a doctoral dissertation on 4IR and digitalization, and how it could improve, leadership in the public sector space, which is very, very important, especially if we want to turn around, public entities and government organizations, government departments, and to advance the 4IR revolution. I must say, Dr. Yende has put into practice, not only wrote about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, but has put into practice many interventions within our organization, together with obviously a contribution with regard to being the chairperson of the CETA CEOs, etc., where she has provided frontline leadership on this topic. So I've heard Dr. Yende just speak just now. I must say thank you, Doc. The comments were most welcome, very appropriate, very relevant in terms of your discussion. And thank you very much for this opportunity. Hope I've not taken up too much of your time. So well done. Congratulations to Dr. Yende and the rest, and those authors as well of those 2 books. Well done. Excellent contribution to advancing 4IR technologies. Thank you very much. Keep well.
Thank you very much. Thanks about that. Can I request that after the vote of thanks, the participant will just take a group picture? Mhlekazi, sisezandleni zakho.
Thank you very much. Acknowledging Professor Maiwa, who's our VP, Research, Innovation and Commercialization. Acknowledging Dr. Ntosana, who's the Unisa Press Director, seated in front of me. Mine is very simple. I think Prof. Ngubane sort of synthesized the day's proceedings very well. And I think if I can just perhaps do an ending quote. There is a prognosis by one of our literary giants, Professor Njabulo Ndebele, when he says we need to rediscover the ordinary. In other words, let us relook at the ordinary lives and focus less on the spectacular or at the spectacle level. If anything, the proceedings today are telling us the need to be socially reflective, to look at whether we're looking at indigenous instruments or whether we're looking at the 4th industrial revolution, to consider the social context, which has got communities, it's got workers, it's got the youth. All the panelists and speakers alluded to that. So in acknowledging everyone's contribution, Ntate Mthembu, Ntate Kangwa, Ntate Ngonyama, Ntate Maimela, Ntate Nachivamba, Ntate Patel, Ntate Ngubane, Ntate Nachivambe, Dr. Yende, we really appreciate your presence here and being generous with your time and actually being with us and deliberately talking about the contents of the book. And definitely we invite you for further volumes, which you must publish with Unisa Press, because we are, even for the market, we are the most reasonably priced publisher. So I think colleagues, if your colleagues are not there, buy a book for them and you reclaim the money from them. It's quite low price. It's very market friendly in terms of the prices. So thank you very much, colleagues. And I must not miss, of course, the colleagues who were participating in the book, starting with Innocentia there. The team members, there's Jack Chokwe, who was actually involved in both books. There's Heta Peters there. Colleagues are outside the room as well, Doris and I think Luba, who were part of the project teams for both books. Painstakingly, from birth up to the publishing, they were very sort of patient with and seeing the project coming through. Thank you to the authors as well for coming through to Unisa Press. It's at the right place, at the right home for you. We are very proud of these titles that you have, and we are actually looking forward to ongoing conversations with you regarding subsequent volumes, subsequent engagements, depending on the issues that emerge or surface from these books in our discussions. Thank you very much, colleagues. And I think they've been kind enough to also provide some refreshments in the foyer. So let us just also interact and unwind, raise our arms and hoist glasses to congratulate the authors and engage further. Thank you very much.